that is the Gold Cup hero. Two of the most admirable chasers you could possibly wish to see.
Relentless, remorseless, and pounding Cordan Star into submission.
Hello and welcome to a very special edition. I would call it a Racehour Extra. It's me, Dean Ryan, in the towers of bookmakers.co.uk. I've got Diarmuid Nolan with me, and I've also, well, this is the special part of it, of course, as the racing manager for Susannah and Ricci. Joe Chambers has joined us ahead of the Dublin Racing Festival. Hi, Joe.
Hello guys, how you doing?
Well, really well, and really looking forward to this weekend. It seems like all the big guns are coming out to play. You guys, of course, are connected to plenty of them, and I think the best place to start is that Min will take on Chacun Poursoir in what looks a very, very interesting start on Dublin Racing Festival Day 1 at Leopardstown.
To tie the event, isn't it? Probably that and the 2 mile novice chase look to be on paper two of the most intriguing races of the weekend, at least the deepest contest, I think, at this stage. But Min goes there. I think he's the highest rated horse in the race still, one of the last couple of years. And when we decided not to go for the Kinloch Bray a couple of weeks ago, here was the obvious place to go, other than Ascot for their Grade 1 Ascot chase. But our horses are trained in Ireland, and this is one of the flagship weekends of the year in National Hunt Racing in Ireland. Yeah,
I mean, look, it's happened before where, two stable stars in those colours, those famous Ricci colours, take on each other. But how are emotions when that kind of thing happens? Because everyone was talking about Chacun Poursoir, being the second coming.
Saldier in charge only in November, really, wasn't it? So.
Exactly. I know it happens. I just wonder how emotions come across then. Do you care who wins? Is there a favourite going into it for the owners and connections? Or is it just we get the 1-2? That's amazing.
And a 1-2 would be great, but there's one has been there and done it in Ireland for the last couple of years, albeit I think the best performance Min has put up was in the JLT last year, and Chacun has to step forward. I know he's been a token horse, and we waited 3 years for him, having bought him to when he finally ran at Naas last year. But he does have to step forward and do it in open company, which he hasn't yet. But I think, Willies have come forward for the run so far this season. I hope he's no different. But Min has probably been a scorer of great goals rather than a great goal scorer, I think, in his career today. He's put up some pretty big performances and big numbers, but he hasn't really done it on a consistent basis. But we'll see. He seems to like this course and distance, going back to his novice days. I think it's a bit short of his optimal trip, but we will see. Anything can happen, and so Robbie's been a lucky jockey for us, and we're delighted to have him. Chilos Emery is a horse I have a huge amount of time for, and while he's inexperienced over fences, I think he's got plenty of ability as well, and he's only on official ratings rated £4 behind Chacun, for example, and who's to say what would have happened if Chilos had a clear run last year. So I think it's a very, very deep race. We're lucky to have two, what look on paper, very strong candidates. To answer your initial question, I think we'd love for Chacun to come forward and improve on Christmas and, hopefully win, because that would give us what we think is a very realistic and live Queen Mother hope. I'm unsure if Min is best suited to 2 miles around Cheltenham. That's just my opinion. Willie probably has something entirely different in his head.
Yeah, well, look, Min is a horse that, if, say, an Altior hadn't been around, he would have won plenty of the big races at Cheltenham that, his talent would have deserved. So whether he would have been the ideal for 2 mile or not, he would have been a champion at 2 mile for sure. It's interesting.
Yeah, and I wouldn't read too much into last year's Queen Mother because, we went and tried something different. The last thing we wanted to do was lead Altior into the straight again and get beaten 3 or 4 lengths and come second, when we might have said, well, maybe we should have held him up and tried to follow Altior in. But as we learnt at Aintree, Min doesn't like, while he's a brilliant jumper, he doesn't really seem to like being held up that much. He doesn't apply himself as well. So I think it's fairly obvious what the tactics with him will be, and there should be plenty of pace in the race, and I think it's going to be a thrilling watch.
Yeah, I mean, what a contest it is. I mean, we haven't even mentioned like Duc de Genèvre, who goes the Neve course from last year's Arco, and just the race all over it with Aplutar and the 8 runners that will line up. I think, you called it as one of the races of the meeting. It certainly is. And to have 2 live hopes in it, Joe's going to give you, hopefully, the start that you want for a massive weekend. And then when you move into the ERSG Arco that follows it, the next grade one, a lot of people talking about Bapaume. Robbie Power will ride again. Interesting that he was kind of one that's had to go out in trip and now coming all the way back in trip.
Yeah, but he only went out in trip because he wasn't going to make it as a top-class 2-mile hurdler. And we felt as a 4-year-old second-season novice, having had a good, not extraordinary juvenile hurdling campaign, although he did win at Punchestown on the last day of the season. He ran pretty well then in Auteuil after that, over, I think, about 2 mile 5. So we tried to go the stairs hurdle route. He was late back in that year, which also helped make our mind up and stay in hurdling. And he just doesn't quite see out 3 miles at grade 1 level. So, I think we had plenty of other hurdlers around at the time, and that's a function as much as to why he went out in trip as anything else. So coming back in trip was never a concern for us. He ran in November over 2.5 at Fairyhouse, and I think, well, as we all well know now, Willies have all come on significantly for the run. I think it was quite extraordinary how he stopped, which was probably a combination of stamina and fitness. Mm-hmm. And even over 2 miles 3, I should say, at Naas in December, he didn't exactly hit the line that hard, but I think the fact that a number of fences were taken out in that race counted against him rather than for him. Because his jumping is just so quick, and his highest mark over hurdles I think was about 164, if I'm not mistaken. It may have been a little bit less. It might have been 160 actually. Mm-hmm. Whether he was worth that or not, but he was certainly high 150s. And I think his jumping could give him the chance to be at least that level, if not a little bit more than that, as a novice chaser. Yeah. If that's the case, it's going to put him bang there.
Yeah, that's very fair. I mean, how do you see the Arkle picture from a personal view at this point? You've got the likes of Fakir Dudaris and Notebook taking each other on again. Here we have to throw Mellon into the mix, which Paul Townend is going to ride. You've got Robbie on Bapaume. Willie's also got the likes of Cashback. This is a very hot race, and Bapaume trying to put himself in the Arkle picture. How do you see it at the moment?
I was deeply impressed with Notebook at Christmas. He just looks like he's going to be one of those horses that are exponentially better over fences than anything they ever achieved over hurdles. And for a big horse, he's not short of any boot. So I was very impressed with him. I think I think it's a fascinating race in terms of pace, with Cashback, who's likely to get on with things. Notebook is likely to get on with things. I can't imagine Fakir would be dropped out. So I imagine Robbie should be able to ride a race at that boom, and let's see where that lands us with a clear round. Yeah, because you're going to find out so much, aren't you? And of course, like Bapaume has gone out up in trip before, there's going to be more options if it doesn't go to plan here. But if it did go to plan, Arkle will be the route. Yeah, I think so. And what's the word? You can call it a stereotype or whatever it is, but you do need something that gets 2 miles well to win an Arkle. Yeah. And I think we've got a better chance of getting 2 miles well than we probably do 2.5 well. Yeah. He never quite hit the line over 3 miles that hard. He travelled everywhere, but never quite hit the line that hard, I don't think, over 3 miles. I'd also say the application of a tongue tie will probably help him a little bit as well. And just help him relax a bit more through races, and that might allow him to finish in a bit better as well. Okay, all right, fascinating contender is Bapaume. There's nothing then in the following handicap, but when you talk about the champion hurdle picture for this season, I'm not sure anyone would have had it if you just take a look at the betting market right now, how it currently sits, and a real interesting run of you and a horse that's been, I'm going to actually say I think he's been underrated on the best bits of pieces that he's done, and always seems to win a big race every year. Sharjah. Sharjah's right in the mix for a champion hurdle. This could be the day where he confirms himself as the best on the Irish side of the water. But what do you think? Well, it always helps when the horse's number one fan is the fella on top of it.
Yeah.
Patrick is mad about him, and it was obviously far too early to say it at Cheltenham last year, but I've never seen him as frustrated as he was coming back in then, because he did his homework and he intentionally followed what he thought would be the horse that would take him the furthest into the race, and he had settled beautifully and was handling the track. So but he's won of the Galway hurdle. He's won, I think, 3 Grade 1 hurdles for us at this stage. He needed a break at the end of last season. He'd been on the go for a heck of a long time. And I think the ground is just beginning to dry out a little bit. It'll be interesting to see what rain we get in the next 48 hours. It's whatever, 3:30 on Thursday afternoon at the moment. But judging by the reports, the ground is it's not going to be too testing, so that should suit him. And I think Honeysuckle will go forward, Petit Mouchoir will go forward. There's going to be plenty pace, and the two of them just get on very, very well. So it's a partnership you'd be loath to break up. You'd also be a fair bollocks if you did, and we'd be hopeful of a very good run. He seems to be a very consistent horse, and he's got a particular affection for Leopardstown.
Yeah, I would say Patrick is absolutely over the moon with this associate. He's been a very lucky jockey in those colours as well, hasn't he, when he's had to step in as a super sub?
He's also been an unlucky jockey when he's ridden against us. He's won an undersold, beat Douvan in a champion chase at Punchestown, and did he win on Montalbano at Punchestown that famous Friday when Willie nearly went through the card, but Ribbon Light was our fancy that day, and Patrick came and upset it on the other one. So he gets on very well with the horse. He's been lucky for us, and obviously we go back as long as we've been owners in the yard as well. So, but look, I think Classical Dream, it could be interesting to see if they've been able to put manners on him, and Honeysuckle looks the real deal. I know you guys are the founding fathers of her fan club,
certainly.
But it'll be very interesting to see what she can do over 2 miles.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about Honeysuckle almost every week for about 10 minutes. And so far, she hasn't let us down. I'm actually kind of, confused about this, because obviously I'd love her to go and win a mares that we've been telling everyone that she's going to go and win. But, you know more than us about trying to work out targets. It's very tricky. If she does win a race like this, I think all routes will lead to a champion hurdle. It's a fascinating contest. You mentioned Classical Dream. It seems that, it's done everything to get itself beat a couple of times already this season. There's plenty to potentially come out of the woodwork from this race. Sharjah right in the mix there, and all systems go to a champion hurdle if it comes off. And I guess even if it doesn't come off, that'd still be the race for Sharjah at Cheltenham. Yeah,
I don't think he's got no other entries, but that's where he'd end up going. But it's not all about a destination in March. There's the journey along the way is every bit as important, and this, I think, is this is nowhere near a trial of a meeting anymore. I think this is a standalone event, and 2 days of racing that you could bring anywhere and stand behind.
Yeah, well said. I mean, it could easily be a target for everyone and forget everything else, but such is the quality and the prize money on offer. I wanted to ask you about Tiger Tap Tap, who's going to go also on day one in that 3:45, the Ladbrokes hurdle. Really put it together the last couple of times, Joe, and a horse that I guess we don't know where the ceiling is yet.
Yeah, well, he ran very well on debut behind Sir Eric at Leopardstown as a juvenile last season. He was probably a bit over the top. We probably trained him too hard between then and the Dublin Racing Festival, and he was one of the horses, if you recall, during Cheltenham last year, there was a lot of travel disruption for some horses on the ferries, and he was actually stuck at Aintree Racecourse for a few days during Cheltenham and didn't get there until quite late. So he didn't have the most simple of travel arrangements that week, so that's why we kind of left him alone for the rest of the season, and he didn't see him. Winning the maiden hurdle did his confidence the world of good. Paul was at pains to give him as easy a race as possible at Thurles last time. I get my Thurles and Clonmels mixed up, but I'm pretty sure it was Thurles. It was probably Clonmel now. He was at pains to give him as easy a race as possible.
Yeah, it was Clonmel that day, yeah.
It was Clonmel, yeah. As soon as I said Thurles, I knew it. And I think he had a rating of about 140 or 142 at the end of in the Anglo-Irish classifications at the end of his juvenile season. Whether he merited or not is another thing. But look, he's in here up 136. If you think he's going to be a grade 1 or a grade 2 horse, he's going to have to be 10 pounds better than what his mark is. So why not go for a big pot?
Yeah.
While he's still a novice over hurdles, he does have plenty of racing experience. A couple of flat runs in France. He obviously had last season. He had 3 runs, 2 runs this season. So hopefully the hustle and bustle should be okay for him. He should be able to travel quite well. It's whether his jumping will hold up or not, as I think it's still a bit sketchy. He's prone to throwing in the odd clanger. And obviously Paul has picked Build Me Up Buttercup. So I'm excited for Danny to have a ride who's stepped up and taken all of his opportunities this season in light of Elvis having left the building and David Mullins being injured. Look,
there are many able jockeys out there. He's certainly one that you'd happy to have on your side. So Danny Mullins will ride Tiger Tap Tap. You have another interest in the race, don't you, Joe?
I do. There's a couple of lads in the local pub over here outside London that were foolish enough to want to get involved in a horse, which we did, which is a filly called So Enjoy, who was on the comeback trail, and a few of the other guys in the pub and some friends then decided we were having too much fun and they were foolish enough to want to get involved. So Shoot Time came available for sale back in October, and we bought him, and he stayed with James Nash, and he's had 3 runs for us, and he was second at Punchestown to drop the anchor, and then he went and he won quite nicely in a handicap hurdle down in Cork before the end of November. He was due to run at Thurles just before Christmas, but that was called off because of fog, and while he went up £10 for his win, I'd be hopefully he's better than 129. So there's a clatter of guys coming over for the weekend. So it's nice for them to have a runner on a big day, and it's a massive pot. So touch wood, I think he'll travel well, but in any race like this, you're going to need an awful lot of luck. But I think he's got enough toe and boot to hold the position, and we'll see how he goes from there.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's no messing around in a race like that. 23 runners or so looks like they're going to line up, and everyone's scrimmaging. Fascinating to have 2 interests in the race, Joe. I wish you the best of luck, whichever way that falls. Hopefully, one or other or both. Another 1-2 on the day would be pretty cool for you. I mean, when we get to,
I'm not sure which way around.
Well, I didn't want to put you on the spot there. I don't think that would be fair. When we talk about Sunday at the Dublin Racing Festival, it's all going to revolve around one horse. The machine is back. I think when we talked about Faugheen going chasing on the Racehour podcast when we first saw it entered up, I think I said something like, I haven't got a clue what they're doing here. How is Faugheen going to go novice chasing? But by my word, this animal is something else.
He's unreal. I mean, the truth is, we never really spoke about staying hurdling, going chasing, or retiring. I think we all kind of had independent chats with each other rather than having one collective. But you know, it's Willie was determined to go novice chasing with him, and it's his bus and he's driving it. So We're just happy to tag along and see how he goes. You know, Limerick was a phenomenal day on St. Stephen's Day. And I think there was over 14,000 people there, and my father went along and had a day out, and if it did half as good for people's mental health and body language that were there today as it's done for him, it will have served its purpose, because it was the manager of the track, Patrick O'Callaghan, rang me that evening, and he described it as the first day they had senior hurling at the track, which I thought was a lovely turn of phrase. But Patrick wrote very eloquently, I thought, after it in his Irish Independent column. But he's horses like Faugheen and Tour and Douvan and those amazing horses that Rich and Susannah have been very lucky to have had. You know, they're very rarely born, never mind bought. And Faugheen is still there after all the hardship he's gone through, and he's still able to put in pretty significant performances, and now over fences at his age. But at the same time, that was only his 15th run since he won the champion hurdle 5 years previous, or nearly 5 years previous. So there hasn't been a huge amount of mileage on the clock in recent years for him.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
You know, for one reason or another, not to say that the absences don't take it out of horses, but look, he jumps well. I'm assuming Paul will want to get back on him. We all are. and Mellon obviously now goes for the shorter race rather than that, which is where we actually thought Mellon may have run.
Yeah.
But very excited to see him turn up at Leopardstown and against Battle Over Doyen, and what is yet another cracking looking event.
Yeah, unbelievable matchup. I think with a horse like Forheen, and I'm going to use words you don't have to agree with me, like the biggest danger to Forheen is generally just Forheen. If he's at it, if he's on his game, there aren't many horses, probably even at the age of 12, that can live with him. Now, Battle Over Doyen might be very, very good. You could face a Lorena in here. I mean, there's other options as well that would certainly fancy themselves as being a big part of a generally run flow gas novice chase, which is a hot grade 1 at Leopardstown every time. But if Forheen's on his A game, he is the horse they all have to beat.
Well, he's got a tremendous ability to travel and to keep a very high gallop, a very strong gallop up for a very long time, and not a lot of horses can do that, and I think we saw that from the swing for home down to the second last at Limerick. But he did. I would go back to his beginner's chase at Punchestown back in November, when he made that mistake and Paul just sat up on him and just let him come back on the bridle himself. And then he made the mistake at the second last, or pecked at least. But the way he came back on the bridle and quickened away from the back of the last, I just thought was extraordinary for any horse, not to mind a horse of his age.
Yeah, that's what he is. Just an incredible story. How far it will go, I guess the horse is going to tell you all.
Yeah, exactly. And there's plenty of races in Ireland for him with the powers at Fairyhouse and what have you. But I think, as I said, we're just letting Willie drive the bus on this one. Every call he's made so far this season has been correct, so we're not going to start interfering now.
Yeah, he's a difficult man to tell him that you think you know better, I would imagine.
Just a touch. In a good way.
Of course, in a good way. Geez, if you can have anyone on side, you'd have Willie Mullins, and you do. Okay, so, I mean, we are set for a marvellous 2 days there. I mean, while I have you, Joe, I might touch base on a few other horses that we're not going to see this weekend, likes of Get a Bird.
Get a Bird, I'm afraid, has had a bad setback. He was being prepared for the Dan Moore Handicap Chase at Fairyhouse.
Right.
2-3 weeks ago, and worked very well the Tuesday before, but he's done a leg injury in the days before that race, and he definitely won't be out this season, and he may not be out for out again for a significant period of time. So that's unfortunate.
Yes.
We were trying to find and pinpoint right-handed races for him for the season, and he got off on the right foot at Gorham, but he was a very good horse with plenty of ability in his own right, but he had his own preferences. But he's going to be out of action for a significant period of time.
And Joe as well, just as much as we all absolutely adore Honeysuckle on the Racehour podcast, we're also absolutely cracked here about Saldier. How is he?
He's good. He's been back in the gallop for some time, and touch wood, everything is going well so far. We could have accelerated training for him and got him to the Dublin Racing Festival, but Willie decided a few weeks ago that he'd rather just do his homework at home and just deliver him at Cheltenham on the day. And in fairness, he's got course and distance of doing that, so that was fine by us. And touch wood, he can just keep him in one piece until then. But yeah, the plan is to go straight to the Champion Hurdle, and we'll go from there. But he's a horse that we've always thought the world of. He ran in the Triumph Hurdle off the back of a very short prep. He'd only had his maiden hurdle win a few weeks before that, and probably should have won at Fairyhouse the next time. But then he'd showed an awful lot of natural ability to win at Punchestown at the end of the season. And we all saw that race last year where he unfortunately got a kick in the head, and took him a long time to get over that mentally and physically. And it was great to see him come back into Morgiana and be brave down to the last two under Danny and show no ill effects. It's just a shame that we've had to miss about the middle 6 to 8 weeks of the season with him.
Yeah, we've shown what you can do when fresh and when in good form. So I guess the choice to maybe miss an occasion here probably won't do him any harm if he gets to Cheltenham in A1 condition. I mean, you've got Sharjah and Saldier. Is there a perception amongst the connections which one is the better horse? Would anyone even know yet?
It depends who you ask. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder and all that. Everyone has a different opinion. Patrick will tell you that Sharjah is a long way ahead, and others will tell you that Saldier is better. But look, we're very lucky to have two pretty good 2 mile hurdlers, and just trying to get them and keep them sound and keep them on the go is a challenge enough as we've seen. But I wouldn't know who's better on what ground and what trip. I'd love to be able to go back to the flat with both of them. I wouldn't stop either of bringing us to Melbourne if that's the way we wanted to go. I just think they've both got an awful lot of ability and plenty of boot. So we'll see. Sharjah's probably slicker over his hurdles on the evidence we've seen to date, but we'll be a bit wiser, I think, in 6 to 8 weeks' time, and hopefully, if Sharjah can run as consistently as he has been this weekend, we'll be going there with two credible options or two credible chances in the Champion Hurdle in March.
Oh yeah, there's a Tuesday date in March that will tell us everything. Hopefully, both get there in one piece. You have to give us an update on Douvan, I guess.
Douvan had a very small procedure on his back in December, which was something totally new, and he may have done it as a result of I think he paddled through the second last, or it might have even been the last on a third. But he's fine. He'll go straight to the Queen Mother. Touch wood, if we can keep him in one piece. I don't think we're ever going to see the best of him. We hope that would have been in the Queen Mother what feels like a decade ago now, but was probably 3 years ago. But yeah, look, he has an incredible amount of natural ability, and I think that's what's getting them by at the moment. But Willie is very good at bringing them back from different types of setbacks, and if we can get him to the champion chase in one piece, we'll see how he goes. Patrick is convinced that he was only doing a half speed when he tipped up a few years ago, but who knows? The fact that he was even there in the day and travelling and jumping with as much zest as he was, I think, is a credit to the training performance of WP and the amount of ability that the horse actually has to be able to have done that in the first place.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I know you guys want Chacun Poursoir to step forward this weekend at Leopardstown, and of course Min is there as the great understudy if he had to go at 2 miles, but can obviously go out and trip. If Douvan gets the Cheltenham, there'll be some punters not knowing which bit of their heart to follow.
Yeah, I think with Douvan, he'll run when he's ready, and that's the kind of attitude we've had for the last year or so. Is that whenever he's fit and sound and well, regardless of the race and any other animals that we may have or Willie may have, he'll just run when he's ready, because we don't know how long more he'll be sound for. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, I imagine in an ideal world, you'd have Chacun and Douvan, and Min would go Ryanair, but racing has a very consistent, if funny, way of pulling you down from your high horse more often than not.
Yeah, and lots of them are enforced, and lots of them are part of the bingo game that we all love playing pre-Cheltenham, when everyone has to come together. There has to be a meeting of minds to decide which races work out best. You've got to get the horse there A1 first to have decisions to actually make. What about Benie Des Dieux? Because
watching people speculate on the Willie Mullins bingo game is every bit as entertaining, I can tell you, as it probably is as you guys playing it.
We love it. It gives us everything to talk about. we often get it. We often think we have it perfectly right and then get it spectacularly wrong, and we're generally proved wrong by masters like Mr. Mullins. So that's fine. There's never any problem. What about Benie Des Dieux, who, when winning that Galmoy in the style that she did, everyone said Stayers Hurdle, take on Paisley Park. There's obviously an easier race, if you call it that, with no Honeysuckle in the mares, but she's been there and done that. All options are open, I guess, but at least she's shown that, my word, she's a remarkable mare.
Oh, she's a cracking mare, and we knew when we bought her 4 years ago, whatever it was, that we were buying a mare with a pretty good pedigree. She already had black type racing form, not to mind, in her pedigree. And we always wanted her to be a chaser, especially the way that she jumps fences. But she's just probably a bit too hard on herself whenever she does jump over fences, which is why our hand has been forced to stay down the hurdle route. She's run over 3 miles the last twice. I would argue they've probably been her 2 best performances, in O'Toy and at Goran last week. She, I think, probably would have won the second mare's hurdle last year, but for tipping up at the last.
I don't know about probably, Joe. Yeah, she would have won.
But she has a huge amount of natural ability. She's got a massive long stride in her. I'm absolutely mad about her. To me, she's, I say this to Rich and he disagrees, but I think she's the best horse he currently has in training. I think he'd like to think that it's Shotgun, but she's lesser spotted, which is probably why she maybe isn't as appreciated by the wider racing public as other mares and horses that you see more frequently than her are. But we won't make any decision on where she goes until the Friday or Saturday beforehand. She has her entries in the stairs hurdle, and she has her entry in the mare's hurdle, and all I'd say is the decision is probably an awful lot closer between where she will go than the general public are speculating at the moment.
Right. Okay. Wherever she lines up, the general public will be very interested to get involved, I would imagine. She is something else. A couple of others.
Well, her revised mark puts her £7 behind Paisley Park, so she's been up to 162 after last week. So with the mare's allowance, the handicapper is saying game on. I did note I was sent some sectional detail the other week where she was actually quicker from 3 out to the last than both Classical Dream and Espordalan on the Tuesday of Cheltenham last year. So she's not short of boost, and she's obviously not short of stamina. But I mean, look, if she were mine and mine alone, I'd be having a crack at the stairs hurdle. And she's already won a mare's hurdle, and the fact that she went the mare's last year was as much a function of we as owners were going there with a hand with 7 or 8 runners on the year as a result of injuries in the drying ground, with a team that wasn't all that strong. I mean, our best performance of the week was Ballycasey coming fourth in the cross country race. So that's why we felt that she was our best chance of a winner in the mares last year, and that dictated where she went as much as anything else. So I'd just say, there's certainly no decision has been made, and one won't be made for a while, but it's not as foregone a conclusion as some might lead to think.
Okay, I mean, do you know what I found interesting? We did talk about it on the Racehour podcast this week, is that I was looking at the prize money for the races. You finish second in the stage, you cash a similar check as you do if you go and win the mares, but winning at Cheltenham is a little bit more important than the cash, I guess.
Of course it is, yeah. Although they're doing the best to dilute that at the moment, I think, with a 5th day, or at least the talk of a 5th day. But the same way, second in the Dublin Chase in the 2 mile Dublin Chase on Saturday is worth more than winning the Kinloch Bray was a couple of weeks ago. So it's not just Cheltenham where prize money comes into decision making.
Okay, all right. Talk about a couple that we haven't seen for a while. Elimini and Camellia Ducat. Have they moved on?
Yeah, they were both sold in full to Australia at the November breeding sales last year, we've pretty much we've never bred ourselves, so that's as our mares get towards the end of, or what seems the end of their season, we tend to cover them and sell them at that sale. So yeah, they've moved on, and hopefully they will be a success for their breeders. And
one thing, Joe, as well, that we noted on the Racehour podcast was the real lack of juvenile hurdle entries from Willie Mullen's stable this year. Has Rich got any knocking about there?
We've got a nice little filly by no risk at all called Hookup. She might run very shortly. I know the entries for the Triumph Hurdle are closed but not released yet. When they are released, you'll see she's entered in the Triumph. Whether she goes there or not, I don't know, but she's a nice little filly. She might be one that we do something similar to what we did with Tiger Tap Tap, and more prevalently with Let's Dance a couple of years ago, in that we'll run her in grade ones, and if she wins one, great, and if she doesn't, she's still a novice for next season.
Yeah, because I remember that well, actually. Rich
and we have another juvenile who we'll keep for next year, called Grand Bornand, who's a fine, strong AQPS horse, but he'll go novice hurdling next season rather than run as a juvenile this year.
Perfect. And then as far as the novices go, obviously Monkfish was superb. We just saw 5 o'clock win there, and A1 as well this season. Those three first of all, and then is there any that we haven't seen yet?
Yeah, we feel a little bit like Igginstown with what look like chasers running as novice hurdlers, which is a little bit unusual for us. But in an effort to try and get a stronger band of chasers, we bought a particular type of horse. But A1 was good. That was an opportunistic race for him at Gorin last week. Monkfish, I thought, was pretty impressive 2 weekends ago. And 5 o'clock fell in over 2 miles, but he needs closer to 3. All three of them are chasers. I mean, I think Monkfish is nearly 18 hands high at this stage. So there is, their future hopefully is ahead of them if we can keep them in one piece. I imagine 2 of the 3, if not all 3, will end up at Cheltenham in the Bartlett or the Ballymore at some stage. Even Flight came out and showed much improvement at Fairyhouse a couple of weeks ago, giving £8 to one of Gordon's. He was second, so hopefully he'll come out and win his maiden. There's a horse called Fly Smart that seems to be the social media darling of this year.
There's always one.
And there's always one. I'm not sure who's talked him up, but someone else, I think he was in some book or something back in October, November time, and everybody has latched on. He'll probably run the maiden hurdle in the next 10 days or so. Whether he's good enough or not, I have no idea. He's had one run round O'Toy, and the form has worked out to a degree, but whether you can take all of that with you to the bank 18 months later is another thing entirely. We bought a Galileo called Ngolo, who had a bit of a setback, so he might run on the flat this summer. And there's a lovely horse by Blue Brazil called Fou de Brazil, who might be out near the back end. And Rebelito has been out, and he Paul pulled him up the last day. He just wasn't right, but he's entered at Thurles next week, and he might well run there. And a lovely horse called Figueroa, who is going to be kept for next season as well.
Absolutely fantastic, yeah. So again, whilst last season, as you said, we didn't get to see many of the novices. There's plenty of them there. And Monkfish Joe, as you said, he will go to the Albert Bartlett, but we're kind of stuck in that territory now of the old saying, whatever happens this season is kind of a bonus with him.
Yeah, to a degree. I wouldn't say it's a slam dunk he goes for the Bartlett. I see he's shortest in the betting. That's where he's shorter in the betting, but he can travel as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And to be honest, I've no real view where they go either way. I just want them to be around for chasing. That's their game. Yeah. So it wouldn't bother me if none of them went to Cheltenham, but that's not the game that the owners are in the market for.
Of course not. And then one horse, Joe, that I had to ask you about was a horse that we absolutely loved when he was second to Off You Go. Deal d'Estraval, how is he now, or is he near?
He's back in the gallop. He's back in training. I think he probably set a record last season for being the horse with most entries that never actually ran. And Willie just pulled stumps because of the ground at one stage. So he then had a small setback, and he is back in training. And whether we crack on after February the 1st novice chasing, or stick to hurdles and go chasing next year, is to be decided. We'll wait until he's a couple of weeks off a run and make that call. But yeah, he's a horse I would have a lot of hopes for. I think he's got a fair degree of promise. And in the same way, he and Auntie ran in the same race. That ended up being Katie Walsh's retirement race. Deal d'Estraval went off favourite, but Auntie's learning the hard way. I don't think he was done for a Gorin last week when he tipped up. So I expect him to continue to improve as the season goes on, and he might be one for a nice novice handicap chase towards the end of the season.
Lovely. Joe, I wanted to catch up with you about a horse we haven't seen for, it feels like a couple of years now, in Bamako Morivier. I probably said that wrong.
He's had a litany of issues. And he's back in. He's on the go. Whether he stands up to training or not, we will see. But if he doesn't, we will just retire him and rehome him. But hopefully he will, because he had plenty of promise.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's just had one thing after another. But we haven't given up hope.
Okay. All right, well, that's good. That's potentially good news about Bamako. I won't say the second word again, but people can go and check this horse out. Last seen dismissing jury duty in a Grade 3, I seem to remember, but that goes back some time. Okay, Joe. So look, we've been through quite a lot there. I'm guessing if there's anything else that needs to be mentioned, we're probably going to see it on a racetrack at some point soon. But the Dublin Racing Festival is what we got you on here to talk about, and what would make it a successful couple of days?
Oh, you'd love a couple of winners. I think everybody would love Faugheen to come out and win, as much for the emotion side of it than anything else on Sunday. But it would also be good for horses that are half his age to be able to step up to the plate as well, which is a very important aspect of things. We can't be relying on the elder statesmen all the time. So, yeah, look, you'd love for Bapone to come forward and run very well and see where you lie with him and make a plan for the rest of the year. And, I think from the point of view of, I guess, flat trainers and owners have 2-year-olds and they spend the winter dreaming about whether they'll, be able to continue the progression as a 3-year-old. We'd love for Shakran to be able to step forward and prove that he's the main Irish challenger to Defi Desoy and Altior in England. So, I think that would be cracking to see, but that he's probably got a tougher task in his hand than Faugheen may have, or at least he's got it numerically at least, than Faugheen has on Sunday. Yeah.
Well, look, we wish you all the very best with those runners over Saturday and Sunday at Leopardstown at the Dublin Racing Festival. We always have an eye on Cheltenham, Joe. If there was one horse you could pick out, maybe for an anti-post tickle at Cheltenham, which horse would it be? Might put a countdown clock on this.
Yeah, you might have to. I'd like to think that I'd like to think that Bapone could probably come forward in the Arkle. I'm not sure there's a massive amount of strength and depth in the UK in the 2 mile novice chase division, and I'd like to think that if you believe his hurdle mark, or at least within a couple of pounds of it, and his jumping ability that he's demonstrated so far, I'd like to think that he could step forward, and whether he wins on Saturday or not, but should he run very well, I'd like to think that he could be a very lively contender for the Arkle.
Beautiful. Thanks, Joe. Real pleasure to have you on this Racehour Extra here. Derma, I know, and myself, very grateful for you spending a bit of time with us. Best of luck for the couple of days ahead and the rest of the season, and getting some of these horses back on the track that we are missing dearly. Really look forward to catching up with you, hopefully before Cheltenham, after all the dust settles from this, what is a kind of final trial weekend. Do give Susannah Ricci all our very best, and best of luck for the weekend ahead.
Cheers, guys. No problem at all.
Thanks, Joe.
You've been listening to the Race Hour, brought to you by bookmakers.co.uk, your best bet for tips, news and bookmaker reviews.